Welcome to Biker Protocol. I'm Hollywood with Black Batch MC in Las Vegas, and we got...
I'm Picasso, president of the Eagle Riders MC here in Las Vegas.
We're going to talk about poker runs in this video. How to start one, what a poker run is, some of the specifics. Probably make it a two-part video. It's a lot of content to cover, but if you've never been on a poker run, stick around.
Yep. So what exactly is a poker run? Let's first address that, right? So what is a poker run?
So I was back before I rode motorcycles. I was into the classic car scene, and they have their poker runs. So it's not just strictly to motorcycles. I mean, there's boat poker runs and all sorts of stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
You know, like around the lake, and
Sure,
even like
sense.
snowmobile poker runs up in the mountain. I
Really?
hear about those.
I didn't know that either. Okay. Learn something every day.
I mean, because you can attribute it to anything, right?
Sure.
So poker run is so as I was saying, I was super confused. It's like you drive around, and you collect cards. Like, what is it, right?
Yeah, right.
So the basics, right, is you take a basic poker hand, Texas Hold'em. I mean, I'm not super knowledgeable on poker, but it's a 5-card hand, and you go to different spots, and you collect a card at each spot.
Right.
And so, you know, you get a king, you get a queen, and then your hopes is to get like the royal flush or something really great at the end, and you
Make
win
a
a big
hand
prize.
out of it, yeah. And by the way, we say poker run is kind of a generic term because there's a lot of different types of similar things. We know one organization here in Vegas that does a scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
I would kind of lump that into poker run, right? We know our club doesn't do a poker run. We do like, we call it the roll the bones where we roll dice, but it's kind of a poker run.
I guess you could say a poker run is like a multi-stop game event where you win something at the end, or like their event, you can win stuff at each stop sometimes. So the idea is ride, put some miles on your bike. You know, especially if you're going to be making your own poker run, put some miles on there. Make it a ride, and then you have usually it's like 5 stops, right?
Usually, yeah. We do like 6 or 7, but we're doing dice.
Yeah,
right?
so it can vary because it's dependent on the type of poker run.
Right.
A traditional one would be 5 stops, 5 cards. You meet up, sign up, whatever you got to do. You take off, first stop, get a card, so forth.
Right.
And end stop is usually your last card, and then you see if you have a good hand.
Right.
Pretty simple.
There's ways to kind of work around that a little bit too. So some of these things, you know, I will share with you, and we'll kind of get into this a little bit later, is the whole idea is you want to get people to the final stop because there you can start to do raffles, you can give away prizes, you can have them talk, you know, you can have vendors set up, right? We've done that where we've had sponsorships where people have booths there. So the whole idea is you want to get them to the end. So you don't want people dropping off halfway because I haven't got a hand. So there's ways around that. We're going to talk about that. But it's ultimately getting them to a final destination. Yeah.
So that's what a poker run is. You want to win some money, ride around, hang out with the community, and a lot of times they're for charities, right?
Right.
You know, you're helping raise money for charities.
Right. And a lot of times you'll get people that'll attend because of the charity.
Yeah.
So like we do ours, we have 2 adopted charities that we use. One is like a local motorcycle organization. It's called Rider SRS, I'll just say it. And we like donating to them because they help bikers when they go down, right?
Yeah,
So
they're great.
They're a wonderful organization, and they help bikers when they, you know, get in accidents or whatever with medical bills and things like that, right? But the other organization we do is because we like supporting veterans a lot. Over half of our club are retired or you know, veterans.
Yeah.
And so we like supporting the charity which we currently have adopted is Honor Flight, which works to get people, they fly them to Washington, D.C. a couple times a year, veterans from World War II, Vietnam, and Korea. And they give them a whole experience through, you know, like a weekend experience to go to the memorials. And it's an amazing charity. And so we love working with them. So because of that, you know, if you're dealing with veterans, vets will show up because they like supporting veterans charities. We know one club in town that did something for, I don't know the same, it's the High Rollers. They're a club here in Las Vegas. They did an amazing poker run where they donated money to, I think it was an animal shelter. And, you know, who doesn't love pets, right? So, you know, it's like everybody shows up.
Yeah, one of the last ones we did was for a bird sanctuary.
Right.
Yeah,
so that was a good one. Yeah. So, yeah.
And so, why? I mean, we're kind of talking about why you'd want to do it. Obviously, charity,
right?
Raise some money,
for
have some
charity.
fun. You know, ride your motorcycle. It's pretty straightforward. Like being part of the club community, you can't just sit and be. I mean, you do get those clubs that are just kind of like lonesome and they just do their own thing. But the idea is to be part of the community, and so that's part of it is put on events, and one of them is a poker run.
Well, didn't you say, I think in another video, didn't you say that like the motorcycle community is responsible for like a large amount of local charity?
Yeah, and that's a big thing too. I mean, we're helping a lot of people by doing that because there's so many bikers out there, and they all are pretty much, I would say, 98% have big hearts.
Yeah.
I mean, they just want to help people.
Right.
So
That's true.
That's a great reason to put on a poker run.
Right. Well, and the other reason, in addition to raising money for a charity, is it raises money for the club.
Yeah.
So, with our club, we donate a lot of the proceeds, the majority of which, to our charities, but it helps us to kind of get a couple bucks into the club too, and helps fund things that we want to do and stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so like the percentages of proceeds versus what the club keeps, it can vary. I mean, I wouldn't want to throw out any numbers. I'd say like, I don't know, talk to a lawyer or an accountant or something, because, we're not going to be held responsible for that.
Right.
But so you can raise money for yourself and then the charities, and win-win. Everyone gets to see you. You get to hang out with the community. They get to see how you're helping the community, and then that's kind of like the big part of it is community.
Yeah, it really is.
So the kinds of poker run, you already kind of talked on that. With yours being the roll and the dice. Regular poker run is just the cards.
Yeah.
You've got the dice. We did one where it was carnival games. So you had
that's right. We were on that too. Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
Each stop was a carnival game.
Throwing knives and weird stuff like that, or bowling. The bowling, you did better than I did.
Yeah.
I did lousy at the bowling end. I was good at the knife throwing, but not so good at the bowling. Yeah.
But there's different ways to do it. They're all just the generic word is the poker run, right? So
right. It's just going from stop to stop, earning something. And one of the things I'll stress too is, and that particular poker run, great bunch of guys that put it on, and they're a wonderful group. But one thing that we kind of like when we do these things, we're like, oh God, look at the route. When you're picking your route, pick something fun.
Yeah.
I mean,
definitely.
when we do ours, we try to get them out of the city. When you feel like you're just running errands around town, it's a little less fun, right? Some people, well, let's just send them all to all the Harley dealerships. That's kind of lame. I ride a Harley, and I think that's lame.
Harley for
right. I think that's lame, and I ride a Harley, right?
Yeah.
So so choose your routes where it's fun. Like I said, pick a final stop, which is going to be a fun final stop. Whether it's a really cool bar that supports bikers. We did one. We did for a number of years. We did ours. We ended up at a golf course.
Oh, really?
And they had this huge campground there because they did car events. The president of the golf course actually did car events. So they had this big open area that we could set up, and we had motorcycle games, all kinds of fun stuff.
And on that note too, so the idea is to ride. I mean, I like putting on the miles. I'm not a huge fan of the rides that are just from this block to that block to that block.
Yeah,
like
it's just
they
boring,
can be fun, but like you're riding on a motorcycle, you're supposed to go ride.
Right.
But like talking about like say your event where you win prizes at each stop will encourage that riding, because a lot of times what will happen is people will get to like the second, third stop, whatever, and they've got like all like say just a generic poker hand, they got twos or something, and they're like, forget this, I'm not even bothering the rest of it. So how do you get them to the end? As maybe
there's a solution to that. So what we did, I'm going to explain to you what we do to help prevent that, but I'll tell you another solution to the poker run problem.
So before you go down, let's because we're on the route thing, so it's kind of like part of that. Choosing it, and then the time frame also is important to consider. How long is it going to take them to get around? You don't want them spending 10 hours riding.
No.
Day,
We try to keep ours about 2 hours, 2.5. Depending on the length. I think anything past that, then people have to have time commitments. People have honey-do lists and stuff like that, And so you have to factor in how much time they're going to spend at the final stop. If there's going to be food there, they're going to eat. Then or even on the stops along the route. And one of the things that we always do whenever we do our events is we always plot out how much time it's going to take to get from point A to point B, from point B to point C, and then if they're staying at point C, how long it's going to take to keep them there. Because some people, you might have a stop at a bar, and it's the fourth stop along the way, and it's 90 degrees outside. Let's sit and have a beer, right?
Yeah.
And so the next thing you know, people are sitting there for 45 minutes, and then you're wondering why nobody's showing up at the end, right? So time that out. Always have once you figured out how much time it's going to take for people to ride from point A to point B, get off the bikes, go pick their card, sit there, use the restroom, get back on the bikes, and then get on the road again to the next stop. Calculate all that, and then it's going to give you a time, right? And then you'll know that you're about how long it's really going to take to run it.
Yeah.
And then you've got to tell people, okay, you've got to be back by this time, because this is when the drawings are going to take place. And this is where we're going to announce the winners, and this is where we're going to do the prizes. And so you got to make sure you have all that in order, and that keeps people just understanding they have to be back at a certain time.
Yeah, and then coordinating with the businesses too, because you can get local business involved, so then you're also helping the community that way.
Right. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And they're going to love it. Yeah. And so, but the other important part too is that So let's say we have 5 stops on our route, right? So you only have so many resources as far as people go. And I don't know how big your club is, but our club is not a giant one, right?
That's a big part of it, yeah.
So the people that are manning the second station need to know when they're going to pack up and then run to the end because we're going to need all the help at the end of the thing. So we make sure we have it's like a Disneyland trick. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but when you go to Disneyland, if you ever look at the signs, it's like, this line is 30 minutes long, okay? Well, the way they find that out is they give somebody a card,
and
they actually wait in line, and when they get to the end, they turn the card in, and then they wire it down. They say, all right, this guy was in line for 40 minutes or something, right?
Interesting.
That's how they do it.
Yeah.
So whenever your last stop is going out, you got to let them tell everybody along the route, like, oh yeah, I'm the last person. So when the last person's at stop number 3, right, stop everybody working stop number 3 just to pack up and they can head on out. So,
and that's a huge part, because then if that's all screwed up, then you're not getting people to the end spot, which is where you want them to be.
Right.
You want them to have fun and go on a ride. That's a big part of it. But ultimately, you want to raise money for charity, raise money for the club, and then have everyone together and having a good time as well.
And if they're not showing up to the final stop, they're not buying 50-50 tickets. They're not buying raffle tickets. They're not doing. So what we do is we have the ability on ours, without going into too much detail, at ours, people have the chance to win instant win prizes on every stop. So all those prizes that are left over that people didn't win, and we have some pretty nice prizes, we take it all back to the final stop and then we raffle it all off. Okay, so this way people are, so you spend another $20, right? And you get this many tickets. But now we've got like a table full of stuff, and we group it, right? So everybody's going home with stuff, and it makes everybody feel good, and it's another good way to do that, right?
Yeah, because I know a lot of people come out for the charities and they want to help,
right?
But let's be honest, they want to win some stuff.
They want to win some stuff.
So make it worth their while.
So there's a couple tricks to it. One is let people know. So we do like a high hand, low hand, in our case, like high dice, low dice, right?
Yeah.
So people don't feel like, well, I didn't get a royal flush on my poker hand, so what's the point? Because you might win it on the low end too.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's a good point too. With just a regular poker run, a lot of times they do that high. So if you do have the crappy hand, don't give up yet, because you could be the really crappy hand and win some money.
And every time we've ever had our events, people are like, I never thought I'd win this. Like and we give away things like Raiders. We gave the last couple of years, we gave away tickets to a Raiders game, and we give away good prizes, But I will share with you one trick that I learned. I almost hate to admit it, but I learned this from a Harley store. We did a poker run a couple years ago, and I thought their system was so brilliant. It was like, oh, this is great. So everybody starts picking their cards, right? And so you get a 2 and a 7 and a queen, and you're like, I got nothing here, right? And I've actually had poker runs where I thought I had I did one years ago where I had a full house, or I was working on. I had like 3 of a kind right out of the gate, and it turned into a full house. And I was like, holy crap! Like this is an amazing hand. And I go and I turn it in. I'm like, so where am I at? And they're like, oh, you're not even in the top 20. And I was like, what? There's like 4 full houses. There's like 5 4 of a kinds, a straight flush. I'm like, all right. So there was a system I learned that I saw a Harley store do on a poker run they did. And I thought this was really brilliant. And the way they did it, I need a drink of water, is what happened was every card you picked was not the card you actually were picking.
Oh, and so it corresponded to something else.
Right. So you would get like a 2 and a 5 and a queen. And then what happened was when you turn your cards in, excuse me, there was a big board, and it corresponded to what you actually had.
Oh,
so your 2 of spades may have been an ace of diamonds, right?
Yeah.
So this prevents people from just going, I don't want to bother anymore, and it forces you to get to the end. And it was a great idea.
So it's kind of sounding like, if you're going to do a traditional poker run with cards, do something like, maybe there's a raffle prize at everything, but make it so that they know that they're not just going to lose the first stop when they draw that 2 or whatever it is, because otherwise you're not getting them to the end.
Right.
So, and then what? So that's the basics of it. The multiple stops, whether it be rolling dice, points. Like the one we went on recently, where they had little it was like toy axes, and they were throwing axes.
Right. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
And make it fun, but get them to the end stop, and that's one of the main goals. What happens at the end stop, though? Where raffles, music, there's a lot, and it goes on from there.
Well, and also it's important to understand what you're giving away and who you're giving it away to. So, if you're doing tickets to a Raiders game, you'll probably get good attendance. If you're giving tickets out to a Taylor Swift concert, maybe not so much, right? Maybe you will. I don't know. But in this community, probably I would think maybe not so much.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'll give you another example too. So we did one some time ago, which they did a scavenger hunt, right? And it was amazingly put together. They had about a zillion prizes. And it was same kind of concept, but here now you had a list, you had to ride around to different places, take a picture of it, and then mark it off on a list, and then you had to prove that you had it all, right?
Yeah.
So point that. Okay. So they did this for some time, and it was a huge hit. They had a massive turnout. And then one year they changed the way they did things. And they changed it to where same kind of rules, but now they changed it to, and if you post on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and every single social media platform, you'll get all these extra points. And the people that were like winning this stuff were like total influencers and all that. But for guys like us that are
don't make it more complicated.
Don't make it more complicated than it was. And you're dealing with guys who are like, 65-year-old bikers that are just like, they're never on Facebook other than look at their grandkids' photos. Right? Now you're asking them to post on Instagram. It's like it's a stretch, right?
So there's so much involved.
And it hurt their turnout.
Yeah,
Next year
I
after
can imagine.
that, it hurt quite a bit,
there's so much. I mean, just this little conversation we're having, and this is like not even getting to the end stop.
Yeah.
You probably want to plan this quite a bit in advance as well. Like, you have to find the locations, which is a big part, especially if you're in a motorcycle club, putting a motorcycle event on. There are a lot of places that do not accept motorcycle clubs.
Correct. And then you have to be aware of that because you start, and of course, talk to them, but even get into details. Now, I will share with you, and I kind of like what you were just saying, I want to preface this too. It takes a lot of work putting these things on. I mean, it's a huge amount.
And a lot of work, and there should be, whether it's the president, secretary, whoever it is, divvying up to all the members, because it cannot be just one person.
So the way we do it is we have a committee. So it's just two people, but it's a committee, right? But it's their job for the whole year. We assign this in the beginning of the year. Our event's always in October. And so their job for the whole year is to plan the route, get the, and they recruit people like, hey, I need help with sponsors or whatever, and we all pitch in.
Yeah.
But we have a group of people that their job is just to manage this event, and every year we've done it that way. It's been an awesome thing.
Yeah.
But pick, like you were just saying, and this is worth mentioning too. So pick the location, but be very specific, because a lot of times things sound like a great idea on the surface and they turn out to be a disaster.
Yeah.
We did ours one year, and we thought it was so funny that we thought, hey, let's pick one of our stops as a strip club. Like, how awesome would this be, right?
Yeah.
And it's like on a Saturday, it's like it was on a Saturday, and the girls are, I mean, let's be honest, on a 10 a.m. on a Saturday, or like, you're not dealing with the A team there, right?
Yeah.
But it's okay. And so we found out, the club was normally closed. The club we chose was closed on that day. It was a great location. We liked them a lot, and they loved the idea. They were a new club in Vegas. They were on the strip. They're great. Everything clicked right, and we thought it was so great. So we picked this spot, and then usually our look, we have a table set up. We have all our prizes there. We got people there to greet you. The whole thing, right? Yeah. So we get down there early, and the cleaning crew is, vacuuming in the morning. I mean, they don't even have anybody really working. I don't think that, that time of day. But, the club opened up for us, right? The manager was there. Everything was great. So we start bringing our tables inside, and they're like, oh, no, you can't do that. We're like, well, why is that? And they go, well, you can't wear club colors inside the club.
No.
Well, we had no idea, and we talked to them about this. It was never a topic of conversation. We're like, but it's a charity event. We're going 15 feet inside the front door. They go, doesn't matter. It's a rule's a rule.
Wow.
And we're like, oh my God. All right, so maybe we can take our colors off. I don't think they'll, we're weighing this all out.
Yeah.
Then came the second problem. They said, oh yeah, by the way, we have to wand everybody down. And we're like, you realize every single person. Now, I don't know what it's like in California, but I can assure other states. But in Nevada, I don't think I know any biker that doesn't carry. Right? We all
At
do.
least a knife,
At least something, right? I mean, a lot of us conceal carry, some open carry, some have knives, some have, right? Okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of Wild West in Nevada. So. So when they were saying they have to wand everybody down, we're like, that's not going to go, right?
Yeah.
So then we had to move our table outside. It was like, it ruined the entire idea for doing it.
I spent one of our first rides of the year a couple years ago. I swear I spent an entire day riding around. I probably hit about 10 different bars, because our original bar, we had been doing it for years, got bought out by a new company who had a regular rule of no cuts allowed.
Sure.
And we're like, and I talked to the guy. He's like, well, I know you guys are cool. You've been doing it forever. He's like, I might be able to do it, or maybe the manager won't be in it. And I'm like, well, we can't risk that. Like, if we can't have people, we can't, as a motorcycle club, put on an event at a place that doesn't allow cuts, because people with cuts are going to show up, and if they tell them to take it off, that looks bad on us.
Right.
So I spent a whole, day going around like 10, 15 bars, all of them shooting you down like, oh, no cuts, no cuts, no cuts. So it's a good point. That is, like, location is what do they say? That's the phrase. Location is number one. Like, you have to have a good location, a team that'll work with you. We've had where we tell them, we're going to have, 30 bikes, 50 bikes come in. Will you have a couple bartenders? Oh, yeah, yeah. And then it's like one bartender.
Yeah.
And everyone's pissed off. They're not getting their drinks. So it's super important location.
The last place that we started doing it at, what we've had, and it's a common place for a lot of biker events. They're a kind of, I wouldn't call them a biker bar, but they're very biker friendly. They don't serve food, but that's fine. At least not in the morning. But we were doing this on a Saturday. Everybody was showing up around 1 in the afternoon, noon to 1 a.m. or 1 p.m. But they loved it because, they kind of get it. And so they call in all their staff because they're like, we tell them we're going to bring in over 100 people in here in like 2 seconds, right? And they love it because the bartenders who normally work on a Saturday morning, they're used to getting $10 in tips. Now they're getting hundreds of dollars in tips. So everybody's making a ton of money. And the bar loves it because, well, they love it. It's all this free business for them, right?
And that's what's super important about planning it ahead of time, doing all this research, because you can't be at the last minute. The day of, you find out stuff like that, like no cuts allowed or whatever. Then it's like, well, what do we do now? We got 100 bikes coming in an hour. Like, where do we go? So planning the sponsorships, planning the route, like you were talking about earlier, planning is super key. And we always set a deadline that if we don't have certain things by a location or a time or a date by a certain date, we just cancel it. We cancel the event because we're not going to push it, because you can run around it with like headless chicken and it'll turn out like crap.
Yeah, it's a disaster.
So planning is super important.
And then if you do have the option, and if you do have vendors or stops that you have a surplus, right? Because sometimes we have a lot of people that are interested in having a stop. See if you can get them to donate something. I mean, you're bringing business to them.
Exactly.
It's literally for business. So like we've done it. We've had stops at like motorcycle shops. We've done stops at motorcycle supply stores, without naming names, right? But and they're very gracious for the business. So see if you can get them to kick in a little bit, right? So we've had like the different stops donate like coffee and donuts. It's a no skin off their back, but we're giving them a lot of free exposure in business, right? And it creates a better experience for our riders, especially on the first stop, which is really important. Have coffee, donuts, things like that. See if you can find somebody like a local restaurant or something, donate it. It doesn't cost them a lot, but the perceived value that it creates for your riders is really good.
Oh yeah,
it's really cool.
And you don't have to think just like bikers and bars. You could be a coffee shop. It could be a restaurant. We did one at a little deli once.
Oh, that's great.
And a little side note, I think that has worked well with us is sometimes when you talk to these people, whoever your organization who's in charge of like going to find locations, maybe don't roll up in your sweaty biker outfit.
Yeah, I agreed.
It is kind of a business. Maybe wear a button-up shirt and don't show up in your bike.
I agree.
And just say, this is what we want to do. It looks
don't
more
look like a bunch of
professional.
like rough, tough and tough, because people's perceptions are different.
Yeah, and it shows a level of professionalism that you're taking it seriously. It's not just a bunch of stinky bikers showing up. And we've seen great success with that, like really good success. And I learned that from one of our founders, that you wear your nice clothes and then drive there so you're not sweaty, gross looking, and it goes a long way with
it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
One of the stops that we've used for the past couple of years is a really huge gun store, right? And when I mean huge, I mean like they've got tanks and legitimate helicopters.
Nice.
Oh yeah, it's crazy, right? But they're a really cool place in Vegas, right? So we bring them in there, and so one of the things that, and again, a lot of places don't have to be bars. So like one of the things we do with that particular stop is we have coolers that we bring with water, because this is like their third or fourth stop. People might be a little thirsty, so we just give them complimentary waters, right? Costs you nothing. You go to Costco, you get a case of water costs $15. Right?
So you can kind of see all the different levels and why starting this months in advance is super important, and create that organizational list of things that you need to do. Start with, say, how long do you want the ride to be? And then start with how many stops, and then start finding locations, and then start narrowing it down to, now we're talking what raffle prizes or sponsors and stuff like that.
And your main prizes.
Yeah.
It's important to lock up your main prizes early, because you need to use that to help promote the event.
Yeah.
So when you are, when you're making flyers and we kind of did a little bit of a promotional video already, but to kind of enhance on this a little bit more is everything that you do should be social media, of course, right? But you need to get out flyers to your community. All the motorcycle shops should have them. Give them out to every biker event.
We used to actually we would carry them with us, and if we were at a gas station and there was a motorcyclist, we just, hey, we're having an event coming up, here you go.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah. We have one of our guys, it was a brilliant idea by one of our club members. So we have a area right outside of Las Vegas called Red Rock Canyon. It's a National Park.
Yeah, or
And
state park.
It's a
State
state.
park, yeah.
So it's a really common place. People take exotic cars out there,
Yeah.
motorcycles. Really beautiful ride. It's easy. It's easy to get to. And so what he did was on the outside back part of this, there's like a little stop area. People kind of, it's covered parking and stuff, and it's an overlook. So he would get out there with a cooler, right, and he would just hand out bottles of water to everybody on a motorcycle, and he would give them a flyer, and he'd say, "Hey, we got an event coming up in a week." And we did this kind of as like because you start doing that like 3 months out, nobody's going to remember, but you do it the week before. Hey, we're doing a thing. It's going to be a ton of fun. Come on out. Yeah,
you got to do like a blitz, right?
Right, you really do.
I've learned like Facebook event pages.
Yeah.
They only go so far. It
helps, but it shouldn't be your only thing.
And you can post it, make it a year in advance.
Yeah.
And literally and then if you have it, you need to be on there like that week leading up to the day before, reminding people this is happening, because I've learned that at least in our community that a lot of people don't really know what they're doing like tomorrow, a month or a week from now, so you've got to kind of remind them that what's going on.
We asked another club that had a very successful event recently how they did it. And one of the things they told us was they got it on Facebook Marketplace like I think it was like 9 months out.
Yeah.
It was like some crazy time, right? But we're like, why 9 months? And they're like, exactly what you said. It's basically you want to constantly be in their face, right?
Yeah.
And every month they'd go into all the local motorcycle groups on Facebook and hey, got an event coming up in 6 months, mark your calendar. Yeah. And it worked. And they had a really good turnout.
We've put ads in Craigslist. We did this one.
That's a great idea.
Called it Swap Swag and Show. And it was basically a swap meet, swag, and then a bike show. It was all in one.
Love it.
And what I did, I went on Craigslist and made an ad for like a swap meet and put an ad on there like need bike parts. And so when people are looking for bike parts on Craigslist, there's going to be a swap meet. I'm going to go check it out. And so
love it. That's a great idea.
That worked too. Yeah.
Well, that's
so
really
there's a lot
clever,
of creative ways, but it's pretty much that's kind of like all advertising mentality, just pummel the people. Unfortunately, I mean, I hate it when it happens to me, but pummel it until all they remember is, there's an event coming up.
Well, and here's the other reason why this is important, right? So, and it's so important to get this stuff on the calendar earlier. The earlier, the better before your event, for a lot of reasons. One is, right, because here's the thing. Everybody does these things typically in the spring and in the autumn because the weather's nice, right? Not a lot of people, especially here in Vegas, are really keen on poker runs when it's 113.
I think there's like nothing ever usually in like
June, July,
August,
right? Yeah. So, but in March, April, May, and then September, October, November, there's all these events, right? So get it on the calendar as far out as you can, because what it's going to do is it will lock your event on that day, so you don't have conflicts with other events that'll be on that day.
Yeah, exactly.
And it will prevent other clubs from going, hey, we should do a poker run, and it's like 2 months for they're looking at doing one in October, and now it's August, and now they go down the events calendar and like, oh wait, Black Patch has got their event in October, and Eagle Riders have their event in November, and so they have to go around your calendar, not the other way around. So it's really, really important. Figure this out as far out as you can.
And I'm sure with your event, same with like when we do our first ride, if you do it enough and it becomes an annual, then you almost like own that day too.
Correct.
A lot of times, unless it falls on like a weird, like a Wednesday or some weird day, you almost own that day. And a lot of clubs are pretty respectful with, you've been doing this for like 5-10 years. Well, we're not going to do an event on that day because like that's your day.
Well, and also too is like I'll share with you, we've had this issue too. So we planned our event a few months out, and it's important to ask what other people that are doing.
Definitely.
So like for example, we did ours one year, and we had it on the calendar for months, and it was our locked-in date. And then like a few weeks out, a 1% club in town was like, oh no, we're going to do a big open house on the same date. And
we've had that,
So so I mean, who are we to tell them, right? So what we learned to do is we've asked them like, okay, let's do this. You put your date on the calendar first, and we'll work around you.
Yeah.
And that makes it respectful to them, right? And it gets us to where there's not a conflict. Yeah. So that helps a lot too.
And a lot of times that's the big thing in the planning aspect of it. You should have a calendar not only for club events, but Harley events, any kind of whatever Indian events. They're doing all sorts of rides as well. Yeah, and they pull a lot of people, and that means people that aren't going to go on your event. So you don't want it on the same day as that. So that's definitely a big
always be mindful of that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we could keep going, but this definitely needs to be a two-parter.
There was only
covered
one
quite
other
a bit.
point that I wanted to make on this.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
We're going to end this video here, but there's one other point I want to make too. Not only do you, I mean, there's the obvious stuff, Facebook, get into Facebook events.
Yeah.
Craigslist, which you suggest, is a great idea. Like, there's a lot of these things, but also go into Google or whatever search engine you use and look and see what other motorcycle calendars might be related to the city that you're in.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many websites are up that promote events that you didn't even know existed. And it's important to get on their calendars too. Usually it's free, right? But those little things, it may not necessarily draw a lot of people to you, but it helps with your search engine optimization and it indirectly drives traffic to other things.
And same with the locations.
Yeah.
As sooner you can get the locations, the sooner they can promote for you as well.
Correct, yeah.
So you don't even have to worry about that. They'll promote for you as well. And
Right. So if you're using a biker bar as one of your stops, they'll put a flyer up for you to promote your event, and people just know because they're used to coming to there. They'll come to your events.
And it goes like we did a location once. It used to be called State Line. It's no longer that anymore. But they actually
Prim, Nevada,
they actually put it on their, what do you call that? The marquee on
really?
the outside.
No kidding?
So someone that isn't part of the community at all will roll by and go, "Oh, motorcycle event! I'll have to check that out."
We still have, we keep it in our clubhouse. We didn't even know they were doing this too. One of our stops lives like a casino. It was I think it was a railroad pass outside of Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And so they were a stop, and they thought it was cool that they were a stop. We came in to set up our table inside and everything, and they actually had built signs to put around the casino,
Wow.
like for beer specials and
That's
stuff. But we were
cool.
mentioned on there. I was like, how
That's
cool is that? So we
cool,
kept
yeah.
one. I think we stole one and put it in the clubhouse. Borrowed it,
lent it to you for a very long time.
Yeah, right. But I don't think they were going to use it for anything. But it's cool. But those are the kind of things that happen. Yeah.
So let's wrap it up here.
Yeah.
We'll continue on the next video with like actually the stops, like what each stop is going to require, how many people, you know, like if you're doing the poker round, what's involved with like the actual poker cards.
Yeah, more of the
what's
mechanics
involved with
of
that,
it.
and then like raffles and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So
we'll wrap this video now. Thanks again, Hollywood.
Yeah.
And be sure to, we'll put the link if, we're going to probably launch both videos at the same time. So we'll put the link to the next video in the description. So be sure to look on that and more information on putting together your poker run. So thanks for joining Biker Protocol. We'll see you on the next video.